That's something I've always wanted to do. I should have done the whole thing. So we've already had a little bit of time to do the warm-up that we would do with our students, and you've been asked to see how you might, as a student, persuade a particular audience to do a particular thing. If you were a teacher and you were trying to get students to do something that they don't want to do, okay? So think about that for a minute. What are some of the strategies that you use to get an unwilling student to do something that you want them to do? What's one of your tricks?
Find subject matter that interests the student.
Okay. Threaten them. I was going to expect that from Kenny.
Sometimes I say, like, if they don't want to do something, I'll try to start it with them. So, because like a lot of times, if I don't do that, then they'll just kind of sit there. But I'm like, okay, if I can engage them and start with them, then maybe that'll kind of get the wheels turning and let them continue.
Excellent.
This is serious this time. Like legitimately explaining to them what the point of the thing is. Sometimes.
That's a good point.
Sometimes.
Start not at the beginning of the lesson necessarily, but wherever the highest interest part of the activity is.
Awesome.
And try and get them, well, if you start with this and then we go back to this, it might make more sense, or keep them engaged.
Perfect. So when you've asked your students in the warm-up activity to do this where they're trying to persuade a parent or a teacher to do something that they don't want to do, you'll find that your students are going to have the exact same experience that you do, which is they're going to be thinking intuitively about the audience. And when we say sometimes, what we really mean is this sort of depends on the student. It really works well for some students who don't care at all to be threatened, because all they want is the short-term payout, and that, so maybe that'll work with some kids. Some kids respond very well to humor. Some students reply, I think one of the things that is kind of interesting is really, really bright kids sometimes require you to demonstrate that you know what you're talking about, or that there's a reason for it before they will be willing to engage. But it kind of depends on your audience. It kind of depends on your students. And that's really all this is going to be about. So when we're teaching our students about being able to do rhetorical analysis, we're teaching them to think about something that they do intuitively all the time, which is considering audience, considering message, considering what they bring to the table, and then kind of taking a look at how it all comes together. The analysis part starts when you are aware that you're doing it, and then taking a look at somebody else's ninja moves. So we're going to start by I'm going to kind of walk you through an activity that you can do with your kids. I'm going to do more of the talking with this first one, and the second one we'll sort of do together, and then I'll close with an activity that you can do with your students. So the first thing we're going to do is take a look at the letter from the Birmingham jail from Martin Luther King Jr. Pretty much I figured all of us were familiar enough with that we didn't have to do exhaustive reading in advance. What I have created for us is just a little bit of context. For those of you who may or may not be aware, I didn't know that the letter was called A Call for Unity. But I did know that Martin Luther King was in jail for protesting in Birmingham, and that there had been an open letter published, and as it turns out, by 8 white clergymen, basically trying to urge the black folk in the community to withdraw their support from these protests, and maybe to try more direct petitioning within the court system. And they were also considering that they wanted to draw their support from outsiders, and that was a thinly veiled reference, obviously, to King. So we take a look at this passage, and what I provided for us in the passage was just the first couple of paragraphs. Pretty much it is universally accepted that this is like the most masterful speech ever, or a letter ever written, and he's pretty much the god of all rhetoric as far as I'm concerned. Him and Abraham Lincoln, I swear. But just in the very opening bits here, we have his open address in return. So I always think it's interesting to look at letters when people begin or establish, because they're kind of tipping their hand just a little bit about what they're going to be doing. So here is where I'm going to take my students, after I've given them their context, is I'm going to take them to ye old rhetorical triangle, which is just a perfect way for us to really take a look at any transaction, any communication transaction. You're always going to have some kind of a message or purpose. You're always going to have somebody who is going to be trying to deliver that message or purpose, and you're always going to have an audience to whom you are addressing. So what I ask my students to do is maybe to kind of think a little bit about what we have actually going on here. The message or purpose, obviously King trying to defend his strategy. The audience is going to be 8 local white clergymen. Also other people that agreed with the 8 white local clergymen. And then he, the author, is going to be a black clergyman and also the thinly veiled outsider that they were targeting in their letter. So these are all the things that we know. This is where we get down to the analysis. And what I like to tell my students is what we're really looking to do with these pieces is to see the ninja moves that Martin Luther King has made. So you put yourself in his shoes and you're like, I'm a black man who's in jail. I'm a clergyman. I am the outsider of this stupid letter that is being read everywhere. How on earth am I going to get these people to listen to me and to hear me and to be able to understand what it is that I'm really trying to do? So those are the questions that we need to kind of ask. This is a challenge. I always look at it sort of like present to the challenge. How can you get, just as teachers, how do you get that grumpy bastard in the back corner who's not listening to you to suddenly care deeply about prepositional phrases? Strippers is usually what I try to go for, but didn't always work. So, like a ninja, you can ask the students to identify some places when he says he is able to. So these are kind of leading students into these analysis paragraphs that they may be able to write. So I did the first one for us. You are men of goodwill and your criticisms are sincerely set forth. So students can identify, oh, okay, I can see what he's trying to do. He's trying to sort of establish himself as being maybe, you know, kind of, I see what you're saying. I humble myself before you a little bit. He's not coming out with a combative tone. That would be his ninja move. What are some other things that you guys noticed in your reading that you saw that he did that might appeal to some white clergymen in Alabama in 1963?
Well, the second line, maybe second or third, it says, seldom do I pause to answer criticism of my work and ideas. Maybe the reason that he did that is to just kind of, his idea of doing that is like, you know, hey, I don't usually take the time out to do this, but this is so important to me and I want to directly address this, and you know, you should know that I don't always take the time to do this, and so if I'm doing it and I'm, you know, spending the time to do this and directly addressing you, obviously it's important and I want to be heard.
Yes, good, excellent.
He compliments and flatters.
Yes, complimenting and flattering is actually super, super good, as we all know as teachers.
Well, in that third paragraph, he appeals to their knowledge of the Bible as well and history. So he's saying, I'm one of you.
Yes.
We share this.
And even more, what else did you see about that? I am also a clergy. What else did you notice about that?
He says, I was invited here, I have organizational ties here, I'm from the South, and also, you know, most importantly, there's injustice here, so everyone should be here. So
Right.
Well, there's the
against their outsider.
Absolutely.
comparison to the apostle.
He makes like parallels to like actual biblical events that they would have knowledge of, you know, and showing like just as this happened biblically, this is what's going on now.
Right. So not only am I supposed to be here because I organize things and I was invited here, but also as a clergyman, as a man of God, like you are a man of God, this is what we are called to do, right? To kind of establish that sort of connection with him.
You can quote St. Augustine off the top of his head in prison cell.
Yeah, exactly. What a badass. He had, just as an aside, they had in the Civil Rights Museum, like his, from Morehouse University, some of his papers from when he was a kid in college. So like his exam booklet and stuff, I know, I was like, holy crap, I hope I never get that famous. Would lay out my 17-year-old exam booklet. He had very neat handwriting and he was really, really smart, not surprising. But I don't think that time would be as kind to me if I were in that. All right, so we're gonna look at the second one, which is very, very different. In this one, and this one is a nod out to Carla. This is one of her favorite pieces, and it's ever so tasty. So I'll give you just a moment to run your eyes over these beautiful words from Robert DeRoche. so dreamy. It's almost like an SAT book wrote this letter, except for it's beautiful. So we're going to try once more. We're going to take a look and see what we have going on for our message and purpose. And as you notice in the introduction, he's trying to get studio executives to hire him. Okay, that's like his message goal, you should hire me. So he is a man with 0 prior experience in screenwriting. I would like to be a screenwriter, you should hire me. I have no experience at all, actually, in screenwriting. I'm actually an advertising man, and I quit my job, and also I've been in Europe for a year, so take a chance on me. So his audience is going to be probably pretty skeptical folks that he is going to have to try and get to see past what would be a pretty, you know, maybe uninspiring resume. So let's try this. Let's look at our challenge. How can I possibly, what does he do? What did you see?
Well, he definitely draws attention to what he does have skill with. If he has no experience as a screenwriter, he's drawing attention to his obvious ability to manipulate words.
Hold on one second. 11:45.